Hey nerds, what's up? Today's video is going to be my March wrap-up. Today's going to be all the books that I read in March, with the exception of a couple that I might read today/tomorrow, because today is the 30th. And I am in the middle of touching my shelf, so I am hoping to at least finish something, and hopefully more than one something, in the next day and a half that's left of today, etc., etc. So if you're interested in everything that I read for Touching My Shelf, definitely check out. We'll have the vlog for the week. But yeah, so first off, I am going to include my stats here, so I'll put that in right here. At the reading tracker spreadsheet that I use, Allie from the Hardback Hoarder made this spreadsheet, so I'm using her spreadsheet that she made, and this is the just general books that I've read so far. But I want to show you our monthly stats here. So really quick before I get into that, just some yearly stats. So I have read 58% of my reading goal, and in total I've read 11,210 pages so far this year. I've acquired 14 books and read 30 books, 3 of which were rereads. Yeah, this is just some general stuff. This will be more important later when I want to go through like my yearly stuff at the end of the year, but monthly stats. March is the column we're looking at this month, of course, because this is my March wrap up. So I read 9 books in the month of March. And look at that, I read 3,460 pages. So far, January and February were pretty standard. 29 versus 25, but 34 by far was significantly more. Again, like I say always, every time we look at these, I have no idea where the hours listens to come from. But my average this month was a 3.72. It's my lowest average so far, which doesn't surprise me because I also had 2 2-stars this month, and I haven't had anything lower than a 3 before March. And then I only read 1 Own Voices this month. Looking into my genres, always spread out: 2 contemporaries, 1 fantasy, 1 historical, 2 magical realism, and 1 mystery, and 2 sci-fi. So I was all over the place. I love looking at that. I love seeing a big mix in my genres because I do have a pretty eclectic taste as far as that goes. I listened to 2 audiobooks, which is significantly less than February, but it's pretty standard, especially right now. I'm still working from home, so I haven't been listening to a whole lot. This makes sense. And I read 4 ebooks, which also is on par with the fact that I was reading March, like my arcs, and most of those were from NetGalley, so of course mostly ebooks, and then 3 physical books as well. So then moving into audience, I read 4 adult and 5 YA. And I do like to have a little bit of new adult in here. If you look here, we have some more new adult in the previous months. And of course, if you do look in April so far, I have read 1 new adult. So that's a pretty sad thing for me. But overall, I really love to see the mix of adult and YA. Those are my 2 genres that I generally stick to. And then for identity, I read 4 male authors, which is really high for me. Generally, I don't read a lot of men, but I did read 4 this month. And then I also read 5 women. And then only 1 Asian author, and then 7 white and 1 unknown. I couldn't figure out this one author's nationality or race, so I just stuck with what I didn't know. There were no photos or anything to even take a guess on, but also guessing based on looks isn't always accurate either. So then my author status, I read 2 before. I had read 2 authors beforehand, and then 7 new to me. This makes sense, again, reading mostly arcs. It was a lot of new to me authors. And then ratings, 3 5-stars, 1 4.5, 2 3.5, 1 3, and 2 2. Again, this makes sense for the lowest rated month so far, especially with these 2 2-stars. It was unfortunate, and we will go into it in the rest of the video, but those are my stats for the month. As always, the things that I'm working on are reading more diversely in race and in identity. I don't read a whole lot of non-cis people, and that's just unfortunately because I don't pay attention to the authors ahead of time normally. That's not really something I focus on. So this is really interesting because it is a little bit eye-opening. And I'm trying to work on it, but clearly I haven't done a whole lot of work on it. So like I need to do more work, etc., etc., etc. So let's get into this video.
Overall, I am very proud of the month so far. It was my birthday month. I had a great time. This is also my 7-year anniversary of doing BookTube. I've been doing BookTube for 7 years as of March 20th. So that's fucking crazy. And yeah, I'm feeling the love this month in my personal life, in the BookTube life, in all of the life. So that's feeling really good. So even though I did read a lot this month, I've had my lowest rated books so far this year, 2 of which were 2 stars in this month alone. So I'm going to go from lowest rated to highest rated as always, and the first book I want to talk about is Little Cruelties by Liz Nugent. This was one of the books that I had on my NetGalley shelf, so I needed to get that through. This came out back in November of 2019, but I needed to catch up, and I'm still working on that because I'm not done. But the whole goal of March was to read arcs, and then I do have a couple on here that aren't arcs from various challenges and whatnot. So this book was catered, according to NetGalley, as a mystery thriller. The tagline is that 3 brothers go to a funeral and one of them is in the casket. It feels clear from the beginning that the brothers might be involved, one or both, we don't know. And so from there, it like goes into your getting a very non-linear history of the 3 brothers' lives. This book ended up really being more about a very dysfunctional family. It wasn't really about a mystery or a thriller. And so as the story is going on, it's not that I 100% knew how the brothers were involved and which brother was in the casket and etc., because you don't know from the beginning who's telling the story versus who's dead or whatever. But you get each of the 3 brothers' perspectives as they're growing up and everything. The parents are like not very good, especially the mom is just total piece of shit, and just so selfish and like not a good mom. And there's a lot going on in the story, and I didn't like the ending either. There was a thing that happens at the end in regards to a very short, like, kind of epilogue chapter from a different character's perspective than we've gotten so far, and I really didn't like that. It just really rubbed me the wrong way. It didn't feel like it was teaching or doing anything about all of these terrible people. It was just, like, more of the same, and I didn't like it. So, yeah, I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars because it wasn't so terrible that I didn't want to know how it was going to end. Like, I was intrigued, and this is going to be a theme of the 2 stars here, but I wanted to know how it was going to end. So like, it's not a terrible book, and it's not like it's terribly written or whatever. It was just no, I didn't like it. And then moving into my other 2 stars is something that I'm reading for this week. So it was Choker by Elizabeth Woods. You'll get more in the vlog, but basically I called this book really early. Not really early, but like a third of the way in, and it's not that long. So I called what was going to happen in the book, and I didn't like it. It didn't feel, it felt, you know how everyone was really upset about that one movie that came out that was about a guy with multiple personality disorder, and that's like the villain? Very similar. Not the same, but very similar. That's how this book felt, and I didn't like it. But at the same time, again, I wanted to know if I was right. I wanted to keep going because I wanted to see how it was going to end, but like, yeah, still didn't like it. So that's why I didn't get a 1 star. Okay, moving into the 3s. So I have 1 3-star book. It is Sleeping Giants by Sylvia Nouvelle. This was the book for the Goodreads challenge that we'll do again in my TBR, or that we just posted in my TBR that'll have been up the last video that I made. Basically, you guys get to pick a book out of 3 from my Goodreads like entirety of want to read list. And so this one won, which I was very excited about, and this was the one I really wanted to read. So good job for voting on the one that like I was really excited for, but it was like a little bit of a letdown. This book has a style of writing where it's all just the dialogue, and it's written in the format of like you're listening to a recording of all of the different people who are involved in this clearly political issue of this giant robot hand being found, and they think that it's probably aliens, and it's like it's all about like from the beginning of the finding that all the way in the secrets and everything all the way up until whatever's going to come out of that. So I think that the writing style ended up being a detriment to this book. I feel like the politics of it and the secretive and the like unknowing of what this hand is and what are they going to do with it once they have whatever pieces they may find, all of that could have been really interesting had we been able to really get invested in anybody who's involved, and also not just hear it basically third person after the fact. So like the stories taking place in the in-between, in the aftermath, when the person who's collecting all of these audio files decides to interview somebody who's been involved. So I think that was the detriment. I did listen to this on audiobook, and I also didn't really like that, which is surprising because in this format you would think that would do really well. But in this particular case, the voice actors felt like they were acting. It didn't feel like they were the actual people telling the story. It felt like they were reading a script. So that also didn't do its best for me. The next book I have on my list is a 3.5 stars, and it was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And this was the book for the Best Books Club for the month of March. We had our last Zoom club meeting because coming up in April, we're going to be switching. We're going to be doing live shows from here on out on YouTube. But this was really fun. Katie and Paula both joined me, and we got to talk about The Midnight Library. It was definitely my favorite of the 3 we've read so far. Well, that's not even true, because The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue was in January. That was my favorite one, but it doesn't technically count because it wasn't a Goodreads winner. But I digress. Anyways, 3.5 stars. The book is good, and I think people can get something out of this book. I think that I struggled with pieces of it, and you can definitely watch a lot of in-depth thoughts happening in that Zoom video that's up on my channel now, but it just didn't hit something for me. I think a few things rubbed me the wrong way, one of which is that, so this book is following a woman who has decided to die by suicide, and when she's about to make that decision, she gets pulled into what's called the Midnight Library, where she gets to read her book of regrets and then go to a bunch of different versions of her life in which she didn't make the same choices that she's made up until this point. And so the 2 main things that I didn't love about this book was, one, that Nora, is in some lives has help of like psychiatry, psychology, she's on medication, whatever. She's very successful, and then in other lives she's doing more homeopathic things, in other lives whatever. And throughout the book she doesn't seem like she's really okay with the fact that she's on meds. Doesn't ever feel like that really is dealt with. I didn't feel like at the end I felt like she was gonna be okay. I felt like she was gonna be okay for now, but nothing long term was resolved here. Basically, there were just things that I didn't love about this book. I also didn't feel like we ever really, it felt very external. Like the things that bugged Nora about her life or her different lives that she lived, that she ended up saying, never mind, I want to go back, all felt very external. I didn't feel like there was any internal knowledge and understanding and help being had in the book. It was a little bit not perfect for me, but it was still a solid book. Like, I did like it. I just think it could have been even better. The next book that I have on my list was another 3.5 stars, and it was Skywatchers by Carrie Arkos. I really did like this book. This was a historical fiction set in the 1950s, sci-fi, and it's about this group of kids who, so this is like post-World War II, there's a lot of like concern for communism and all this bullshit, and so the group has decided to be a part of the Skywatchers Club at their school, where they basically watch the sky looking for other countries bombing them. It's a very weird concept. But on the one night, they are doing this club, blah, 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 and then this weird light happens in the sky, and it looks like some sort of ship that is going way faster than any technology that exists right now. So they go out to the woods to investigate where they think it landed, and then all of a sudden time jumps and they come out of the woods, but they've been missing for a different amount of days based on which one as they come back. Very, very like mystery sci-fi, because there is a sci-fi element and you do eventually get to know what's going on, but you mostly are just wondering what the fuck is going on. And I really liked it, but I also felt like the reveals didn't feel big enough, and I felt like it was too easy of a wrap up for me. The way that we wrapped it up was just, there was no risk, or there was not enough risk. Lots of trigger warnings in this too. There's like death of a child, multiple actually death of a child in different perspectives. I think that that's actually the main thing. The next book that I read for the month of March was a 4.5 stars. We're getting up into the ones I really, really liked. This is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This is another historical fiction set in about the same area of time, like late 50s, I think. Yeah, I think it's late 50s. Also during the time frame of communism, like the China scare, all this bullshit. It was really interesting to read this book the same week, just accidentally, as the murders that happened in Atlanta, Georgia, of the 6 Asian women that were killed, and just to like not only see that like this shit prevails, it was very sad, but also to get to read this like beautiful love story and get to read about certain Asian cultures. Like our main character is Cantonese, so in this book we read a lot about the difference between Cantonese, and we don't read a lot about it, it's not like a history lesson, but they mention the fact that Cantonese and Mandarin are not the same language and all this stuff. They talk a lot about like the food and the culture and all this stuff. So I really liked that part. And then on top of that, of course, we have the sapphic relationship. Our main character is realizing that she more than just likes her friend, who is named Kath, I think. Now I'm second guessing because I'm really bad with names. Who's surprised? So anyways, her friend, who she has a crush on, that she doesn't really realize she has a crush on, takes her to this place called the Telegraph Club, which is where you get to watch a male impersonator. So think drag queen, but a drag king. And there's also a lot of information in the back of the book that Malinda Lo included about like the history of what drag queen and drag kings were doing in the 50s, because they weren't the same as what we today expect. So it is different in the book, and she kind of goes through a little bit of that history in the back. She also talks about the history of some of the words she chose. So like there are certain terms in the book that are considered derogatory now, such as Oriental is being used. And so she chose to do things like that for accuracy of the historic times. And then also she chose to use certain, so like when people are speaking Cantonese to each other, she chose, or different languages, she chose to write it in traditional Chinese characters, and she did the research to find out what those characters looked like in the 50s, because there was a shift in time. And that part was really fascinating to read about after the fact. I really liked that Malinda Lo included that history in there, because I had no idea about it, and I'm a linguist freak, so I really enjoyed that part of it too. I liked this book a lot. The only downfall for me was that I feel like the end didn't really wrap up enough. I left the book with a lot of questions still of like where our characters, I know that she did give us like a year epilogue, but I really would have liked to see even maybe like a 10-year or something like that, like more than just a 1 year, because I feel like it wasn't enough to like know just what's going on in the following year. Like I wanted to know, like, are our characters okay in the future? There's also this underlying kind of like fear throughout the book about the communism stuff. There's concern for certain family members, things like that. And there's kind of this like ongoing history line that's being made throughout the book, and I didn't feel like anything was really done with that. Not to say that I really necessarily wanted anything to be done with it, but it felt like it was unfinished since it wasn't included by the end. Nothing seemed to happen out of it. I don't know. So that was an interesting choice that I didn't love. But overall, 4.5 stars. Really, really enjoyed. Definitely will be picking up more by Malinda Lo. I don't know if I've read anything from her before. So, for as many low-star reads as we did have this month, we also have quite a few high-star reads. So, 3 5-stars so far this month, the first of which was The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I read this for Becca and the Books Out of My Comfort Zone challenge, so if you want to check out that vlog, it'll be linked up below. Up above? What? Yeah, so I read it for this because she needed to have me make sure to read some adult fantasy that she likes. And I'm so glad I did because Brandon Sanderson, I always want to read. And then the only book that I ever read by him was Elantris, and I did not like that book. And so I was very nervous to pick up more, but she made me do it. And now I've read this one, and it was a 5 out of 5 stars read. I loved it. So this book follows a boy named Kelsier, a man named Kelsier. It's adult fiction. A man named Kelsier. And basically, and a girl named Viv, who's like 16, I think. And we're in this world called the Final Empire. Very oppressive state of affairs, etc. There's magic called allomancy in here, where it works on the metals. Some people can only wield one metal, whereas true Mistborn can wield all of them, which I think there are 10. And so Kelsier is a Mistborn, and he finds Viv and brings her into his decision-making of trying to overthrow the entirety of the government. And that's kind of what this book is about. This book feels like everything I wanted Six of Crows to be, and I did not like that book. I did not think it was that good, but everybody's obsessed with it, so if you're obsessed with it, you might be obsessed with this. This one is a little bit more intense, I feel, because it is adult, but it does read very easily, a lot like young adult. I loved it. My next 5-star read was The Wide Starlight by Nicole Lesperance, and this book completely took me by surprise. I guess it's not completely true, but it did take me by surprise. I knew that I could love this book, but I also was very worried I would hate it because it's matched in that like magical realism type of world where you've got magic, but it's not really explained. It's not world built into it and stuff like that. So I was nervous going into this. So we follow a girl who, back when she was 5 or 6, she's from the area of Norway, like up, like middle of nowhere, basically, in the cold. And when she was 5, her mom took her out onto the ice, and then her mother disappeared. So then her dad takes her to America. She's been living on the East Coast since then. I believe she lives in like Maine or something, somewhere also cold. So when she's 16, things start to happen where there are these little bits of magic coming into play, saying that her mother is trying to reach her, but she can't hear her and stuff like that. So she starts trying to figure out how she can do that. And all these like weird things are happening. Like the northern lights can be seen on the East Coast, which is not usual, and narwhals show up in the ocean. All these random things start happening, and she's trying to reach her mother. Was way more magical than I thought it was going to be. I thought that the line of magic was going to be a lot less than it was, but I really did like it for this reason. And yeah, if you like Summer of Salt, The Last True Poets of the Sea, that style, this feels so much like that. And it just hit right the right way. I absolutely freaking loved it. Feels so cozy. Another book for touching my shelf that I just recently read. So again, if you want to know the rest of my thoughts on all my touching my shelf books, keep an eye out for the vlog. It'll be coming. But I read Standoff by Andrew Smith. This was the book for finishing a series, and I loved it. I loved it so much. So this is the sequel to Winger by Andrew Smith, which I read many, many years ago when it came out. And that book follows Ryan Dean West, is a junior in high school in the first book, but he's only 14, and he's basically, he kind of is getting bullied, etc., because he is younger and smaller than everybody else, but he's playing on the rugby team, and he's a winger, which I don't know what that means, but in my head, it seems very similar to the kicker. Not in the fact that they don't play throughout the game, but just that they're usually very small and they have a very special role of some sort. I don't fucking know. I don't listen to the game part. But yeah, so he's got a best friend named Joey, who's not out, but he is gay, and only Ryan Dean West, I think, if I remember correctly, really knows. So it's like about their friendship. It's about his super hard crush on Annie Altman, the perfect girl for him, and it's just like it's just adorable. Ryan Dean West also likes to draw comics, so there are some comics like hidden in here throughout about his life. And I also really, really like the writing style of this book because, and it's going to be a hit or miss for everyone, because Ryan Dean West is writing the book and he does break the fourth wall. So sometimes he'll tell you things about what's going to happen, or like this is coming in a couple chapters or whatever, stuff like that. Or he'll like reply to whatever somebody said, and then he'll say like, okay, I didn't really say that, what I actually said was this. So it does break the fourth wall of the fact that you're reading a book, which I think is really well done in this book. You don't get a lot of that, and yeah, I loved it. So those are the books that I read in March. I had some really not great ones, and I had some really, really great ones. I'm happy about it. I'm really happy to see what I read. So that's everything for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I make videos every Monday and Saturday, so I'll see you guys soon. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and like this video if you enjoyed. And talk to you later. Peace out. Bye.